Something hot one moment can quickly cool off and be forgotten in the blink of an eye in this ever-changing world. I'm sure some of you remember Stretch Armstrong, right? Oh, you don't. What about Pogs or Hayden Christensen's career? No? Alright, well, my point is trends and even moments all become forgotten in time and with the change of generation. However, there are exceptions to the rules. One such exception being a character birthed in 1939, having comic books, toys, TV shows, movies, and a very god-awful video game. Known for wearing red and blue with a hint of yellow, who is faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, and can sometimes be confused for a bird or a plane, you already know, it's Superman. With James Gunn at the helm of DC Movies and basically giving everything a reset, I decided now was the time to jump in and see what he's created. So with that said, I'm Melvin, and this is Unexplained Possibilities Reviews Superman. Alright, now normally this isn't the type of movie we review here, but I happen to like Superman, received the free movie ticket, he's an alien, and I run the channel, so that's reason enough to give a review. Now for those who don't want to sit around and only want to know if the movie's good or not, well, here you go. Superman 2025 is pretty good, and it's worth it to go and see. For those who want a little more detail, then carry on. I'll try to be as spoiler-free as possible, however, there might be small spoilers. First thing to greet us in the movie is a familiar theme from the Richard Donner Superman films. However, it's been modernized with a nice electric guitar. Upon hearing this, I was worried this movie was going to try and bank on nostalgia, and thankfully this isn't the case. Also greeting us are captions giving some quick details about the world in which the movie is set, basically saying how long metahumans have been here for and when Superman started to Superman. And that's it. No origin story. Superman's already established, and it's a go from there. For a movie 2 hours long, the pacing is pretty good. Right from the beginning, you'll be drawn in trying to figure out what the heck is happening and how did this happen. The movie just goes and does not waste your time with heavy exposition. While the movie does have some slow parts, they serve to show off characterization, and they're not too drawn out. And like most modern superhero movies, there is humor to be found. It comes dangerously close to being too much. Luckily, Gunn was aware enough to know not to push it to that point. However, a few scenes with Krypto could have been cut, and nothing would have been lost. For the casual viewers, there's more than enough here to keep you captivated and guessing what will happen next. However, for those who know comic lore, well, the story will be fairly easy to figure out. That being said, this is probably the most comic accurate Superman we've seen outside of, well, comics and animation. There are changes to some characters' backstories which casual fans won't know about or even care about. Comic fans, however, will spot them right away. The biggest grievance is a moment involving Superman's Kryptonian parents that will make some upset, and rightfully so. This was done because Gunn wanted to show a more human and emotional Superman, which is fine. However, it shouldn't come at the expense of changing something deeply rooted in Superman lore, and why Superman is the way he is. And what makes it even odder is this change is related to Ultraman's origins in the comics. Ultraman is one of the baddies in the movie, and for the life of me, I don't know why James Gunn didn't give him his proper origins. It's literally in the movie, but he gave it to Superman for some reason. It makes no sense to me. it could have worked and kept majority of the movie pretty much the same. Mind you, this is a small nitpick, because barring that, James Gunn's knowledge of comic lore is on full display, and the respect and love he has for the comics very much show. So, while the plot will be easy to figure out, and it's some weird backstory changes, it doesn't take away. The spectacle of a comic come to life, the colorful atmosphere, seeing the characters done right, and the action will keep everyone interested. I do wish it were more practical effects versus digital though, but really the blend of digital effects into real world objects isn't extremely noticeable, which is a good thing. One pretty amazing digital effect is Crypto and how the actors interact with him. At one point, I actually thought it was a real dog. Speaking of characters, this is one of the few movies I've watched where I wasn't annoyed by any of them. Now, that doesn't mean this was perfect casting, very near perfect though. I'll quickly give some of my thoughts on the main roster of characters. Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor was perfect. He pulled off the evil rich egomaniac, envious of anyone who he deems as undeserving, who might have a little more than him, and he will go to the extremes of having his way, in this case, killing Superman. This is the best live action Lex we've seen, and the one who has been needed in Superman for a very long time. Lex's plan is quite literally that. I just want to kill Superman because I don't like him and people love him. Why? That's pretty much it. Simple to the point. I can respect that. Rachel Brosnahan was an excellent Lois Lane, intelligent, witty, sassy, and sure of herself, and really showcasing her journalistic nature. There's one moment with her and Clark that felt forced, but apart from that, the chemistry was there. And I have to say, there is a very real and full-on confidence and sexiness that Rachel brings to Lois that no other actress who played the character has brought. When I think Lois Lane, I will now think Rachel Brosnahan. Eddie Gatheki as Mr. Terrific was a standout, and chances are he'll be in a lot more DC live-action movies and television shows. He portrayed intelligence and craftiness without needing to parade it around and tell the world, look how smart I am, like Lex Luthor. And again, this was great casting. Mr. Terrific isn't exactly very well known, I would say, amongst the casual crowd, so having a lesser known hero in the DC universe shine is pretty brilliant on James Gunn's part, but that's also a double-edged sword because the casual crowd won't know these more obscure superheroes and even villains. The hardcore crowd will love it, but it's the casuals who buy the tickets. Mr. Terrific, though, was amazing in the movie, and I'm sure he is going to be a lot of people's favorite hero. Similar to Bruce Wayne, Batman, in the sense he actually has no powers, he is a martial artist and extremely intelligent. And his scene with Lois Lane is very James Gunn, we'll say. If you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, you'll have an idea of what I mean by very James Gunn. Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner was also a great choice for casting. Maybe not Guy Gardner himself, since, again, very much like Mr. Terrific, the casual audience won't know who he is, but the hardcore audience would. Why they didn't use a more popular Green Lantern like Jon Stewart or Hal Jordan is beyond me. Perhaps because they have their own television show coming out? Who knows? But anyway, this is about Guy Gardner. So Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner is very much comic accurate. Fillion's commitment to the role to actually get that god-awful haircut cannot be understated. He clearly studied the character, and he really managed to bring the attitude, arrogance, and somewhat short temper to life. And Guy Gardner, he can back up the mess he talks, but sometimes you just want to punch him in the face, and it just works so good. And now we have Isabella Merced as Kendra Saunders' Hawk Girl, and, well, what can I really say about this? I feel this was a miscast, and Hawk Girl herself feels off. She feels too young, too small, and immature. And I suppose that Isabella being 23 and 5'1" adds to that. There's one scene in particular with her showing why she's different compared to Superman, and it was distasteful and felt very much out of place. Hawkgirl probably should not have been in the movie, or should have been portrayed by an older actress who is taller and has more screen presence. Finally, the Man of Steel himself, David Cornsweet as Superman. David had big shoes to fill coming off Henry Cavill's take on Superman, and, well, he falls just short of reaching those same heights. However, he's miles better than Brandon Roth. If you're asking who is that, you just proved my point. This version of Superman is more of a Boy Scout that we see in the comics, and David, he does bring an innocence and trusting Superman we've not seen since Christopher Reeve. This Superman in general is kind, hopeful, and tries to always do the right thing. However, David's acting isn't all there. For me, he comes across forced when trying to be brave and speaking as Superman, and whiny when he's portraying Clark Kent and like he's not fully comfy in the role. Maybe he'll grow more into it because he's not bad, but he can do better. Something important that I want to touch on that I think the movie fails at is actually the score. The overall audio of the movie, it sounds fine, it's explosive, blah blah blah. It's what you expect. But the score never takes you to that point of epicness, we'll say. Yes, they have John Williams' original score from the Donner movies, mixed with some electric guitars and a modern take. That's fine. But the original score itself, heard throughout the movie, is forgettable for me. It never took me to that place. I never felt like I was rising up with Superman to fight the baddies. That is probably the weakest point of the movie. It is the score. It's nothing memorable there, unfortunately. And there is a reason why that dun 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 is so familiar. Is because it's memorable, it's powerful. When you hear that, you hear Superman. Unfortunately, this movie doesn't have an identity of Superman itself. It's borrowing off of Christopher Reeve's Superman, but it needs to find its own footing. So the score is pretty weak in my opinion. The fights were good, it's what you expect, and what makes them good is Superman isn't uncaring and just going through and destroying everything or whatever. He's trying to protect and help and do whatever he can. Yeah, there's some cheesy parts in there that didn't need to be in there, but still, it's Superman. He makes you smile. He is a goofball, and you root for him. You want him to win because he brings hope. And I know that some people complained about Superman being weaker in this movie, And I have to disagree. Superman is not weak in this film. I won't spoil it, but he is certainly not weak, and there's a reason why he might be getting hurt here or there. It makes complete sense. I may not agree with it, but it makes sense. And the ones who are complaining about him being weak or not destroying like he's supposed to, I don't think they know Superman lore, or they were expecting a Man of Steel Superman who is depressed and just not really caring and trying to find his way, versus a Superman who's filled with hope, who has found his way and wants to help as many people as he can. And that's something to take into account. Speaking of Man of Steel, how does James Gunn's Superman compare to it? Well, James Gunn's Superman is the more authentic Superman movie. Everything Superman is can be found in the movie. Man of Steel is more of a movie for those who don't know or care for the comic lore of Superman. While Henry Cavill is the better Superman character, James Gunn's Superman is the better movie. It follows source material better, the overall characters and casting is better, pacing is better, and James Gunn has more respect for the fans and characters. But again, if you're a fan of Man of Steel, you will not enjoy James Gunn's Superman because it's everything Man of Steel isn't. Colorful, bright, hopeful, a little silly, not broody, not dark, not depressing, and certainly not a god amongst men. It's a man who has godlike powers just trying to fit in. Is Superman a masterpiece and the greatest superhero movie of all time? No, not at all. However, it's a giant leap in the right direction for DC, especially after the Snyderverse disaster. The movie is fun and it has great themes, which is kindness and hope. In the current present day, we can all use a little hope and kindness. Superman provides an escape from reality and feeds that inner kid who would run around with a towel around their neck, imagining they're flying through the air and being a hero. Superman is a must-see. It's a great movie for those who love Superman or new to him. And because of that, Superman gets 4 Crimson Stars out of 5.